Hello Anna, nice to see you there. And Kate. Hi Libby. Hi Valerie. Lovely. Okay. I'll just start talking and people will probably just come in and join. I think I've got paint on my book as well. Nice to see you. I'm down here. How are your gardens coming along? It's been a wonderful couple of weeks for the garden. Everything's come out so much, and I've been posting lots of pictures of the garden, but I look at the weather forecast and we've got a whole week of rain coming. I can't say that it's a bad thing because it's been really dry here, but I've got peonies and it's so exciting. So I'm hoping to do just a little demo to get started on some peonies, and I'm probably going to cut some of my peonies as well because with the rain they're just going to form a ball. But some of you might have seen my efforts to keep the flowers as pure and crisp as possible by using a plastic rubbish bag, and I put the rubbish bag over the flowers so that when it rains they just keep their shape. The roots obviously want the water, but the flowers really just don't like it, and particularly the buds, they tend to rot. So I'm very pleased this year to have got this peony this far, and they've got 5 or 6 flowers on each plant, so I didn't mind cutting it, but I normally don't really cut them. I just let them do their thing. But you know, the peony is a fascinating plant. It's got a long history. It's a very popular plant in China. It's their national flower, and it has, for them, it symbolizes the idea of beauty. So a lot of royal families have it as their emblem, and they use the flower as that symbol. It moved to Japan in about the 8th century, and I've got a picture down here which is a Japanese woodblock print, and this is of a peony. I just think the composition of this is really interesting and something I'm going to kind of look at in the way I'm going to paint my peony today. I have put it in a vase. I've got a little bit of the vase in the picture as well, but that's not in this one. So in Greek times, Peon was a medicinal healer, and he healed, was it Apollo?
That's one version of the story.
Yeah.
He healed Pluto.
Oh, he healed Pluto.
And the god of medicine tried to kill him for healing Pluto, and Zeus saved him by turning him into a peony.
All right, so Peon was turned into a peony by Zeus, and so in Victorian times the peony has slight overtones. It was considered unlucky to dig up a peony, and it was also a symbol of love having gone wrong. Bad luck and love going wrong. So that's an interesting thing about the Victorians, whereas in the East it was very much a flower that was revered. And looking at this composition, I liked it because the flowers were kind of looking out to something. They were looking out from the east to the west. So as a sort of a bit of symbolism there, or a metaphor, I think this is quite interesting to look at the flower from the side, and you get these interesting sort of shapes, and then a compression of the petals on that side. And so that's what we're going to do today. And this book is called Japan Season by Season. So it's a lovely book which you can buy. Right, so just thinking about this, and I was just as you were all tuning in, thinking about the colour that one might use. So hello Rosalind, lovely to see you. Conchita, hello. Hi Charlotte. Lovely. So I was looking at different colours, you know, basically pinks, reds, violets that we could use to mix the peony colour, and it has come back to magenta as being the main colour for the peony. So I've got some quinacridone magenta here, and I'm going to just mix that with a little white. So that makes a very cool pink. So what I found was quite nice is to get some of that magenta and mix it with a tiny bit of cadmium red, just a very small amount, and white with that. That made a very nice soft pink there, as you can see. Got some 3 values there of that pink. So colour match wise, I think, you know, just adding, if you are doing this at home, try adding a little cad red. I've got Gamblin cad red there, and Michael Harding magenta. Will make a nice sort of slightly warmish pink. I think that would be useful in some places, but it is very, very cold. I've tried it with looking at the ultramarine pink. This is much more on the violet side, and it makes a very pale. This ultramarine pink, if you are painting violet lilacs, is a really useful colour. So it's a much more of an earthy violet, and it also makes a very nice pink, a very useful pink, which I would probably see perhaps when the petals are going into the shade. All right, maybe just in there I can sort of see that pink. So those are the 3 colours that I'm going to be, you know, basically using today on that. So super. Do ask questions as I'm going along. Laura's here with me today, so she can ask them as I'm going, and that'll help you to, if you are trying this project at home. I'll post a photograph of the peony as well. If you want to download it, you're more than welcome, and you can use that as a sort of a template. But there we are. So we've got magenta. We've got magenta with a little bit of cad red and ultramarine violet pink. I always do a little colour test chart like that when I'm starting, just to get my bearings with how I want to go ahead with the composition. I've kind of just marked out a little bit of fluff here with a little bit of acrylic, just on a yellow background. I'm using a linen covered board, and I've just marked over that with some acrylic paint. That's just plain cad yellow, and some pink over the top of that. And I'm going to mix quite just to make my life easier, I'm going to mix as you can see there. So that's the pink I'm talking about. It's a little mix with the magenta and the cad red. So I've sort of mixed quite a lot of this paint up, just so I've got enough to won't be able to finish it today, but you know, just so I can get through a large part of the painting. And it's really nice not running out of paint. So this is my main colour that I'm using. Okay, it's a little on the violet side, but that's okay. Let's just make it sure that it's light enough. If it's a little too dark, it can get a little frustrating. It's amazing how much white you go through. Now I'm going to add cold wax into this. I want to create a little more translucency in the paint. Even though magenta is a transparent paint, white is very opaque, and I'd like to add a little more translucency into that. So I'm just going to get some cold wax just 50-50, not quite 50-50, 30% wax to the paint. So 30% wax to 70% paint. So it's just giving me a little. So I've got a nice amount of paint already mixed up there. The dark I won't have to worry about because I can use pretty much a straight magenta for the dark. So that really is a sort of a mid value. Mix a light value. See how little paint we need. So here we have our light value. Could be even lighter again. So we just don't need much pigment in there at all. That's why it's so good to mix up before you start your colour values that you think you're going to need. So I'm literally just using the scrapings now that are there. Tiny bit of this magenta. It's such a strong colour. There we go. Getting there now. So we can see the gradation of colour from the more intense out to the light. And if I hold that up, yeah, that looks pretty good to me. You see some of the other more warmer violets are in this side, but we basically want something in those colour values. So we're good to go. Anybody got questions on the colour mixing part? I often talk about warm lights, cool mids, warm darks, and in this case, you know, magenta is a really cool colour. So I have found by adding that tiny little bit of cad red into that pink will just warm it up a little. Okay, so that's why I've been adding that cad red, and actually the center of the flower here is quite intense. It's actually, if you sort of squint at that, it's going to tear something off here. You know, if I isolate that and you squint in there, it's quite dark. It's almost an orange in the center of that flower. Okay, so I'm kind of going to leave that orange. I can add that in later, but I'm going to leave that part there as the center of the flower and just then work just structurally, thinking the shape of these things are in a way triangles. Okay, so we're looking for triangle forms in the way that the petals are formed. And I've just got a Posca pen here. Just find these really easy to do drawings with. So those of you that have been following all my demos will have seen me using these Posca pens a lot. But it makes it just easy if I can draw a little bit in of these shapes and just trying to simplify a little bit. But the character of the petals is very much triangular. And that will help you build a little. So there's a ring of very tight triangles in here, and here the triangles come out a little bit more. So just looking for the form, just breaking it down into manageable shapes, because it's a very complicated thing. So there are peonies that are native to Europe as well. It's a plant that is found, but the form of the peony is not like this. This is very much an Asiatic sort of peony. That's probably why it doesn't like a wet climate. It curls up its petals and toes and kicks up a fuss. Broken edge here. So when we're doing lost and found edges, we've got found edges here where we've got high contrast. As it comes into the shade at the bottom of the flower, we've got lost edges down here. So I don't need to spend so much time drawing those out. But where the flower's petals are coming towards you, these are very much found edges, and so we want to mark those out a little bit more, because things that are coming out towards us have a little bit more delineation. And look at this triangle shape in here, and then it's matched, if you really look closely, a triangle that comes that way. So just finding these triangular shaped forms. I'm probably, when I start painting, I want it to be looser. But there's something really satisfying about the close observation, the close sort of accurate observation, and then the loosening up afterwards. There's a sort of an integrity about the thing. You're sort of sitting with it, looking at it, observing it, really trying to understand, what is the purpose of this flower? What is it trying to do? Why has it formed these petals in this way? Now I was just talking about this morning the trout, Schubert's trout music, Die Forelle, and it was the fisherman who was trying to lure the fish, trick the fish by making the cloudy water, by kicking the sand and tricking the fish. Well, in a way, a flower is a bit like that. It's trying to trick, with these petals going round and round, it's trying to trick that bee or whatever insect, into pollinating the plant right in there. And, the insect has to crawl in around all these things to find that. So it picks up all the pollen and it all gets deposited so that the plant can fertilize itself. So it's playing a trick on the poor little insect. These things are sort of objects of seduction, aren't they, really? They're meant to be attractive. And then, of course, once the pollination has happened, it's game over. And it then runs off. And, it's done its job. It's like it dies. It just goes brown and dies. It's a very funny game that these flowers and plants, they play this. I'm not so much worried about the jug today. I'm just really just want to I'll probably just add that in later when I'm working on my own, just to get the drawing right. I'd probably turn it upside down and make sure I had that in properly. I'd like to focus a little bit on the flower for our little session here. So I start by blocking in the darks as much as possible. And so I'll go in with that magenta. Now I'm going to use a little bit of solvent today, which looks a little orange, but it's the wax solvent here. So this is a Zestit product. Now Jackie at Zestit has put together packs, if you want to order them, of the oil, the wax solvent, and a little container of cold wax, which you can buy directly from Zestit, from her. So she's put little packs together of the 3 products that I use. So in this little jar, because I'm just carrying on using what I used the other day, but that's got a little bit of oil and a little bit of solvent, wax solvent in it. So that's my medium. But as I say, you can buy those in a little pack from her, from Zestit directly, and they'll post it out to you as well. but I find it really, really useful. So I'm just standing well back from this. I really want to just, just almost like a watercolor really at this stage. Just, mark in where I want to see those darks. Really just playing around, just seeing how dark it is in here. And then it's kind of there. So these real darks are really just in here. Now, I'll get with thicker paint later at a later stage. This might all disappear, but at the moment, that's what I just want to get like a sketch in almost. And I can use my finger to just bring. Gloves are always too big, aren't they, on the fingers? Just to bring that out as I'm seeing the form of those petals. Just use my finger to. Please wear gloves. I think you don't really want to have solvent on your hands if it's not necessary. Okay. So that bright pink underpainting too is helping to provide that glow that I want. So I'm going to try and leave as much as possible, this dark here without over painting too much of it. Sometimes I do have to go in a little bit and strengthen that where it's necessary. So this has just got a little less medium. So I kind of step into it carefully. Just at the base of these petals. So really around this side there's a lot more.
Someone asked if you're using oil or acrylic.
Oil. This is now oil, and it's oil and cold wax, so it has a little bit of cold wax in it as well, mixed into it, just to give the paint a little bit more translucency. So I've blocked in the darks as much as I need at the moment. Just put the oil over here. Going to get those colours that we mixed up before. Put that there. If you want to, if you find the colours a bit bright, you want to grey them down, you can add a bit of tiny little bit of phthalo green into it, just to knock back the pink. But I haven't really needed to, so I'll just go with it as is. Also, I am painting on a ground. It will affect the colour, as I mixed these on a white ground and now I'm on a yellow ground. I'm just going to get a flat brush, so I'm just using at the moment a sort of a chisel brush, and let's go for the mid-tone, slightly cooler mid-tone colour. And let's just start popping that in. Should actually just start, let's be logical about this. Let's just start here and work our way around. So we get some sort of cylindrical form here. Let's just start here. So these chisel shaped brushes are actually quite nice to use for this project. I don't know, it just gives you a blunter sort of mark. And sometimes you totally lose your way, the petals really. So, you know, have a few petals where you can really get a bit of definition in some, and then the rest can be just as you see. And these ones are coming, so there's the dark there, and so coming away from the dark. These ones are coming inwards, these ones are coming towards the center, and these ones are going away from the center. These are going away from the center. So just mark those going away from the center. I think on the roses, one painting that we did of the roses, you know, I glazed that. In fact, I will get that out before the end of the demo and show you the finished painting, because I varnished it this afternoon. So it's been sitting there for a good week and a bit before I put a spray varnish on it. I chose not to use a brush varnish because one never knows if there's a bit of dry pigment there, and if I have dry pigment there, then the dry pigment could lift. So I find if you are varnishing oil and cold wax paintings and you use pigment, a spray varnish works really well. Okay, so this is our mid-tone, so we've marked in our dark and our mid-tone. Now we're going to add in our light pink that we mixed up. I haven't done much with the bud really. Just thinking, actually I have a completely different colour mix for that. Pop that guy in now. He's got a lot of brown here as well. And I might just pop that green in with a clean brush, different brush for that. Just going to pop that green in. It's quite like that green. It's almost fluorescent green. A little bit of something in there. Carry on with the lighter value now. So start at the middle, work our way around. Again, just where there's a hard edge, you know, just get right up into that hard edge, like here. Just get right up into it. We don't actually take it all the way down to the bottom. We're just really just painting the tips of the staying with these slightly darker lights in the center. This one here is quite interesting because there's hardly any light on that. These ones, I'm going to change the technique slightly. These ones actually come over like so. Try and keep that brush. Picks up a lot of colour. Now, as I'm coming into these petals here, which are there, then I can just blend that with my finger. So it just sits out like that. Sort of a little bit in the shade here. These ones are quite, looser out at the edge. I love those ones here. They sort of really have 3 different petals in them as well. So I want to get that character of the fact that they have separated petals there. Same with here. And these. So it is a slightly sort of mauvier pink on this side. Again, just get that on the outside, then you just blend it with your finger or something, just to ease it in. Okay, now I'm going to start building up a bit more of the lights on this side. So I'm going to use my white mixed with a little cold wax. Probably be 50-50 at this stage, so I can have that quite transparent, well, translucent. I'm going to have a little bit of that pink, but I don't need too much. Show you on the palette knife. So it's quite a light colour actually. It's quite light. What was that, Georgina?
She said she'll watch it later.
Brilliant, I'll see you later. So it is quite a light colour. Now with the cold wax, the lighter the paint, it's quite interesting to have the paint a bit thicker, a bit more density to it than perhaps the transparent darks. So this is quite nice to now come in with the cold wax and really get stuck in with that thicker paint. You can always smooth it out with a brush, but you really want to be able to feel the thickness of this. As far as the techniques for the flower goes, we've covered quite a lot. Let's put a little bit in the centre there too. Just build up more. You can build up more by just layering across the mid-tone a bit more of the light. It's just you've got complete control. if you have a good mid-tone, you've got complete control of where you want to go with your colour. Oops, just picked up some of the lighter. So I can go in and with the brush if I want to, and you know, just come back down with that. Where I see these sort of lights curling round and these petals curling round, you know, I can just add a few of these little lighter tips. Just how these frayed edges, I love these frayed edges. That's all part of the character of the flower. So you can just come out with the brush then from the dark to the light with the frayed edge, like so. As I said, this was going to be a lost edge, so those edges here are so they sort of disappear into the background flower itself. I'm going to bring in a few more petals in here. And I keep going round and round and round. That edge there is quite useful, so I don't actually want to spoil that. Let's bring something sharp here. So by adding that light, you know, and you can just bring your finger around to blend it a little if you need to. Just finding the edge of that petal, just coming in to blend it a little. So you can see how I'm going to build that up and finding those beautiful, interesting. Now I said I was going to leave a little bit of this hot colour on the inside, but I don't want too much. And here, for example, you know, I might now just push that into the lighter colour. Okay. So it's working up the other way. So now working the dark a little bit into the light, or into the mid-tone colour that's there. Don't want to overdo it, because you overblend it, then you've lost all this lovely colour mixing that you've done. There might be something sort of turning round, for example. So you can get that cold wax and you can really give it a bit of a swirl. Because those petals are really interesting too, aren't they? Just give it a bit of a swirl. So these are like these little ones that just sort of curl in and curl out. Whereas these ones here have much straighter, whiter lines. So I'm pretty much done for the demo today. So I just wanted to show you how I might tackle a flower like this in the early stages. It might end up quite different. Laura, do you want to get the roses painting out, and I'll show everybody where we end up with this. So I'm just going to show you a painting that I worked on earlier. Some of you were part of the demo and we did it together, of where this might end up. Okay, right, so this was done in the garden, and so I've done a lot more work on that. So we glazed the whole painting with sort of a slightly warm magenta colour, and then I've come back in with more oil and cold wax over the glazed painting and really just built up this flower. And I'll probably do this for the peony too, so it feels very rich and thick like what's going on here. I've come in with more impasto greens over the glazed painting, so these greens now really sit quite forward, and the blue that's behind is much more sort of recessive, so it really feels like a real rose bush, you know, looking with the sky behind it. So that's probably where I'm going to end up with the peony painting, but it was just a nice little project to start doing something a little different. So that's brilliant. Okay, I'm going to turn the camera towards me now and say goodbye. So if there are any questions, please just write them on the little chat down there, and I'll get back to you on that, especially about mixing, you know, what level of wax you want in your oil paint, because that does give you different results. But certainly once I've got to the end here, you know, this has a lot more wax in it because I want that translucency so that it sits up over the glazed, transparent glaze that I've put on. Well, great, it's 40 minutes. Thank you for joining me. You can watch this video later if you want to and have a bit of a recap, but we'll see you again. Oh, I did want to say before Laura does stop the video, if she has or not, Zoom will be on Thursday, the Zoom call, so do let me know. Email me, Nikki Heenan at btinternet.com, or message me here if you'd like to be on my Zoom call for Thursday. All right.